The box of creativity, a cage of our own making, finding satisfaction in and with life. Creating the box. Whether we realize it or not, our creativity and our creative imagination are our most valuable assets and underlies all that we do and all that we are. The Releasing Unlimited Creativity understanding is directed at stretching our perceptions about the nature of reality to open the door to empower our creativity and our creative imagination to access the depth and breadth of our inherent creative ability and creative power. Creativity is about bringing something into existence. It may be a thought, image, or story within one's mind, or an internal experience of some type, or an external object or experience in the external world. Creation is about seeing options and the freedom to explore options. Our inherent creativity is much more encompassing than the usual way many individuals perceive creativity. Many see creativity as accessing different, if not new and original ideas. Or creativity is seen as the production of artistic works like books, music, paintings, sculptures, movies, plays, and the like. However, our creativity extends well beyond the usual perceptions of creativity and encompasses both creating our experiences and the reality of those experiences. In essence, our creativity is about creating a way of being in creation and experiencing creation. When talking about creativity and looking for creative solutions to address the desire, situation, or problem we face, one can often hear a comment similar to there being the need to get out of the box. In essence, we find our creativity in a box or a cage created by the limits and barriers we impose on ourselves by what we think, believe, and our habits. To most, getting out of the box refers to moving past the limits and barriers of our own thinking that do not allow us to see or to find the creative solutions we seek. However, getting out of the box involves more than just getting past the limits and barriers of our own thinking. We need to also get past the habits and response patterns we develop in life which may have given rise to our limited thinking or keep us bound in our limited thinking. Having a creative idea goes nowhere if we do not change our response to life to implement it. In essence, we place our creativity in a box or a cage of our own making, created by what we think and believe, how we make our choices, and the response patterns we develop in life to protect our creative spirit. The box or the cage is created by anything imposed on our free expression of our creative spirit. If you are not familiar with the concept of the creative spirit, the recommendation is made to read or listen to one of the posted RYUC web files or posted YouTube recordings on the creative spirit. Creativity is about freedom of movement to explore options. Although we are multidimensional beings and can move in any direction in life, we can be blocked or limited in any of these dimensions. From a practical perspective, we can simplify the discussion by looking as us having movement in one of 6 directions: forward, backward, right, left, up, and down. Here, this cage or box can be seen as having 6 sides. To escape this cage or box that we created, it is not about opening a door to get out and move in a particular direction, for we carry the box with us in any direction we travel. Opening the door on one side of the box to move in one direction only means we still carry the limits and the barriers of the box in every other direction with us as we travel in that one direction. It is easy to see how a barrier can limit our freedom of movement if we have limits in any one of the 6 directions when we are in the box. Escaping the cage or the box is more like punching out all 6 sides of the box. All 6 sides need to be addressed to free our creativity. We need to be free to move freely in any direction. When we change what we think and believe relative to the situation we face and any associated response patterns and habits, we begin to get ourselves out of the box. But it needs to be understood, releasing our unlimited creativity is about freedom of movement in all directions. A cage of our own making. But why is this box called a cage of our own making? Here we can see the main difference between the cage and the box is we can see through the bars of the cage. Being able to see through the bars of the cage, we know why we chose to not pursue a particular option. We see the cage protecting us from what harmed us in the past. However, as a box, we cannot see through the box and what is on the other side, so we do not see how the limits and barriers we place on ourselves impact us, and how the limits and barriers in our life may be limiting our freedom of movement. One way we limit our freedom is we ultimately choose what we think and believe. Whether we realize it or not, we may have blindly accepted many beliefs and ideas about ourselves, creation, how the world works, and the like early in life. Nevertheless, we are free to think and believe what we wish. No one can force us to believe one way or another. Others can exert tremendous pressure on us spiritually, emotionally, physically, or mentally to change what we think and believe. But we ultimately determine and choose what we think and believe. The question is, how is what we have chosen to think and believe limit our possibilities and place our creativity in a cage or a box? The second way this box is a cage of our own making is the reason this box is more of a cage than a box. When the free expression of our creative spirit is thwarted in any way, there is some level of pain or discomfort we feel. We respond to that pain or discomfort in some way. Our response then becomes a pattern that we use to prevent that type and kind of pain and discomfort from reoccurring. Alternatively said, we will try some other way to respond to the situation we face rather than face a direction in which we have previously experienced pain. We simply limit our movement in some direction to avoid the pain. Hence, we create the cage without realizing we are doing so. We perceive to only be responding to life. We do not see our responses to life becoming a cage. In addition to avoiding pain, we also limit ourselves by developing ways to get what we want or need. As a child, we need our caregivers to help us meet our needs. Consequently, we develop a way of being with them to get our needs met. These response patterns we develop early in life, we carry through our entire life, never realizing how they limit our freedom of movement. What we do not realize is over time we begin to limit the free expression of our creative spirit by the response patterns we impose on ourselves to get what we need. We see the response patterns as a way to protect ourselves or to get what we need or want, but in the end they become a cage which imprisons our creative spirit and the freedom of movement. It is a cage more than a box when we can see out into the world and we know we cannot go there because we must protect ourselves with the response patterns we use. Only when we face the pain and discomfort or fear of not getting what we need and create a way to deal with that pain and discomfort or that need in a way that does not hold our creativity captive do we escape the cage, truly getting out of the box. Most creativity techniques and approaches seek to find a way to change our perspective to find a creative solution to the particular problem or situation we face. Using these methods, when we think of breaking out of a box or a cage, we think that if we have a door to the cage or break out one or more sides of the box, we are free. To change what our current mind thinks and believes to find the creative solution it seeks is the equivalent of punching a hole in the box or to even punch out a side of the box. Many of these techniques are successful. Most of the available techniques and approaches recognize the mind which created the problem is not the mind which will find the solution to the problem we face. After all, our current mind is what created the problem based on what it thinks and knows and the experience it has had. If our mind is going to change what it created, it must become different in some ways. Our current mind changing what it thinks and believes to find the creative solution it seeks is the equivalent of punching a hole in the box or even punching out a side of the box. However, all we are really doing is expanding the box. We are not dismantling or destroying the box. But this is okay if we are able to address the problem we face. However, truly getting out of the box requires more than just punching out a side of the box and moving laterally in a new direction. Changing what we think and believe to access a creative solution to address a particular problem we face is to punch a hole in the box, if not punch a side out of the box. To do so does give us flexibility in a given area, but it is limited. In the proverb, give an individual a fish, they eat for a day. Teach them how to fish, they eat for a lifetime. Finding a creative solution to a problem we face is the equivalent of getting a fish. That is, we find a creative solution for the problem we face, but our creativity is still limited and confined in the box of our limited thinking and beliefs which support such thinking. There is nothing wrong with this approach, but we continually seem to be limited in our creativity. We continually seem to face obstacles in life for which we need to find creative solutions to overcome or get around. An alternative way is to get truly out of the box to access our unlimited creativity. It is to move toward, if not access, the infinity of our being. To do so, many of the obstacles and problems we face disappear. In one way, many of the obstacles we face now become opportunities. It is the difference of finding a solution to a problem versus creating a satisfying life. Relative to access and freeing our creative spirit, our creativity, and our creative ability and creative power, nothing can be farther from the truth if we attempt to find a creative solution to a problem for freeing our creative spirit and our creativity. To free our creative spirit and our creativity, we need to recreate ourselves. It is about transforming ourselves. Finding a creative solution is not the same as recreating oneself and/or accessing the depth and breadth of our creativity. To find a creative solution, all we are really doing is expanding the box. We are not dismantling or destroying the box. Truly getting out of the box requires more than just punching out a side of the box and moving laterally in life. We need to address all 6 sides of the cage or the box. The question is, what exactly does it mean to break out all sides of the box? Alternatively, we can also ask, what is the effect if we don't break out all of the sides of the box, especially the top and the bottom? To be truly out of the box and out of the cage of our own making, which confines our creativity, is to access the infinity of our being and to know we have unlimited creativity. It is to know we have limited our creativity for the purposes of having a particular experience of creation, both creation with a little c and a capital C. It is to know we can choose to recreate any aspect of our life whenever we choose, and to know how to go about doing it, which requires us to move into the unknown and a new, original, never-before experienced creation. Hence, we need to understand mind is of little value for a new, original, never-before experienced creation. Hence, we need to understand mind is of little value for the new, original, never-before experienced creation. Because recreating ourselves to get out of the box is something our mind has never experienced. Mind does not know what to do. Rather than using mind, we must feel our way and look to accessing the flow of energy that will create the freedom we seek. In looking to explore the depth and breadth of our creativity, accessing our truth or any other effect that causes us to move toward releasing our creative spirit from the cage of our own making, we will find our biggest problems are addressing the top and the bottom of the cage. Punching out of the sides of the box is about learning to move laterally in and through life, such as changing jobs, changing partners or friends, changing hobbies, moving to a new location, and the like. However, it does not necessarily recognize that we take our issues with us. Many people find the courage and freedom to move from relationships which do not work or jobs which are not fulfilling, only to find another relationship that does not work or another unsatisfying job. Truly getting out of the box is about the need for an inner journey of exploration into the source of our creative power and creative ability, and where we have consciously or non-consciously given away our creative power. Truly getting out of the box is about addressing the top and the bottom of the box and taking an inner journey. The reason for this is the top and the bottom of the box are the most related to giving away our creative power for several reasons. As we address the top and the bottom of the box, we begin to move toward the infinity of our being and begin to access our unlimited creativity. The top and bottom of the box. We have placed our creativity in a cage of our own making by how and what we think and believe and how we have learned to respond to life. The sides of the box address our freedom and mobility in life. They are about how we are free or not free to move horizontally in physical creation. We move from place to place, job to job, spouse to spouse, almost as if we are changing our clothes. Lateral movement is easy, and people do it every day and think they are escaping the box. However, the top and bottom of the box are which really controls our freedom of movement and the freedom of our creative spirit to do what it needs to do and to access the depth and profound inner satisfaction with life, if not find heaven, the kingdom of God, or nirvana here and now. It's about creating a life worth living. That is, a life so rich and full and internally satisfying that if one died and discovered eternity is doing what they are now doing for eternity, their life is so rich and full and internally satisfying, they would be satisfied for eternity. The top of the box is ultimately about the depth and breadth of what we think and believe. The bottom of the box is ultimately about the depth and breadth of what we feel. How we think and feel about things in life then determine how and where we move laterally. The loop we get caught in, and which really controls the box, is what we think about what we feel and what we feel about what we think. This is important, and I repeat it for emphasis. The loop we get caught in, and which really controls the box, is what we think about what we feel and what we feel about what we think. We never pay attention to how the two are integrally tied and linked and connected and confines us to the cage. The loop is controlled by the mind, for it can mask the heart and what we feel by determining what it does and does not give us permission to feel, and or how it interprets and judges what we feel. Hence the need for mind to give permission, if not surrender in some way, for our creative spirit to come out or be released by the mind and its thinking to freely express itself. As discussed in other topics, the mind is the god of the underworld, as in the Greek myth of Persephone, where the beautiful Persephone is our creative spirit, which gives us life, and the beauty of life becomes captured. Accessing the depth and breadth of our creative ability and creative power is about the free unfoldment of our creative spirit. If we want to get our creative spirit out of the cage of our own making, we will have to face the top and the bottom of the cage. The top is reflective of our concept of God, source, or whatever you wish to call it, and how and what we think and believe about the creative powers and creative power of creation. How and what we think about and believe about the unseen aspects of creation has a great influence on how we keep our creativity captive and bound. Relative to the top of the box and what we think, the most powerful beliefs we have that controls our creative ability and creative power are our concepts of creation and the source of creation and our relationship to the source of creation. This includes our concept of God and our concepts we hold as to where we see the creative power of creation lie. The top and bottom of the box is about how we plug into the unseen world of creation and our creative imagination. It is about what we believe, think, and perceive. Most of what we think, believe, and perceive lies in the unseen realms, which we call mind, and our creative imagination, and gives rise to why the Buddha talked about the illusion of mind. As with any aspect of our creativity, we need to be free to explore all options and possibilities. Whether we do so is another question. We do have a free will, although evidence suggests as a human being and the structure of the human body, There are many actions we face that are more predetermined than a free will choice as in response to a perceived danger. The bottom of the box is how we plug into physical creation to ground the energy to freely flow to create life and create a life and a way of being to manifest our creation. The bottom of the box is about our physical body and physical creation and what we allow ourselves to feel and sense and how we plug ourselves into what we feel and sense. Our body and the world it experiences is literally how our creative spirit and creative life energy plugs itself into physical creation. Our body is what holds us accountable to the rules of physical creation. How we plug into physical creation is through our body and how we do and do not use the body and how we see or do not see the purpose of the body. Associated with the bottom of the box and how we use or don't use our body is about how we relate to being male or female and the roles we play whether we are a male or a female, and facing our predatory nature in our need to eat to survive, and how and what we eat does or does not allow us to feel alive. Relative to the bottom of the box, what we feel, the most powerful belief we have that controls our creative ability and creative power are those that center around the strongest feelings we have. The strongest feelings we usually have are around sexuality. The second most strongest feelings are probably those that deal with anger, that is, energy that is blocked and built up pressure until it's released as an anger or in some type or kind of accident, illness, or disease. Some would say love is a stronger feeling, but if one looks carefully at love, very few really love another. To love a creation is to give that creation what it truly needs, not what mind wants to give. A true need is a need that, when nurtured, allows the creation to grow and unfold, expressing its uniqueness and full potential. What many have and think what they love is really something else. It is often masked possessiveness and ego gratification or control. We cannot give what we do not have. To truly love is to give what the creation needs and not what we want to give it. That includes ourselves. If we cannot love ourselves to give to our true needs, then we cannot and do not love another. Most have not sufficiently self-reflected to see what their true needs are and what they need to do to meet those needs. Here one must look carefully as to what allows themselves to grow and expand into the fullness of who they are at every level and every aspect of their being. Sexuality is reflected in how and what we think about creating life within and without and allowing passion to arise in our life. How and what we believe and how we act or don't act on our sexuality is key to both creating life within ourselves and how we ground our energy. What is said here is not about free sexuality or promiscuity. Rather, it's about exploring the range of feelings to come to understand what best serves us. The goal is ultimately creating a life worth living. That is, a life so rich and full and internally satisfying that if one died and discovered eternity is doing what they're doing now for eternity, their life is so rich and full and internally satisfying they would be satisfied for eternity. Our concept of the source of creation, which some call God, and sexuality hold our creative spirit captive as the top and the bottom of the box. What has been found is that our concept of the source of creation, our concepts and understanding about sexuality, pain, fear, and in particular fear of pain, seem to be the greatest obstacles in preventing us from seeing and experiencing the depth and breadth of our true creative ability and creative power that is available to us. It has been observed that each of us will have to explore and understand to some extent the creative power inherent in sexuality, the tension between the masculine thrusting energy and the feminine nurturing energy, and how sexuality does and does not function in our life, for we all have a masculine and feminine within us. How we do or do not join our inner masculine and inner feminine determines if we can create the life and the energy within ourselves to fuel the life we live externally. Of course, we will also have to face our concept of God and the source of creation to see if it is holding our creativity captive and allows us to face our pain and our fear. These items are key to holding our creativity captive, and we need to look to see how and where our creativity is held captive, regardless of what holds it captive. We each need to find a concept of God and a way of being sexually and in the body that allows our creative spirit to freely express itself in creative play, and that creative play allows one to move into the most creative state of being. This is a key understanding. To access our unlimited creativity, we must be able to play with our understanding of God and play with sexuality and the free movement of the body as we would creatively play with anything. The reason for this is to know exactly who and what we are and the depth and breadth of our creative power and creative ability accessible through each. We must be allowed to explore the depth and breadth of our being, and sexuality is part of our being as any other part. Exactly what this means and what it looks like for any particular individual is unique to that individual. What works for one will not necessarily work for another. Here we need to be very aware as a detached witness and explore what we are being drawn to create and why. The recommendation is that we become intimate with our body and intimate with our creative spirit to learn what gives us a fullness of being, a passion for life, a passion for living, and what allows us to create a life worth living before we engage in any form of sexuality. Unfortunately, most who read or hear this will be an adult, and they will have probably experiences and made sexual choices long before they return to a state of creative play as recommended here. So most now need to work through all the baggage that they have created around sexuality. Addressing the top of the box. The key to the top of the box is to realize we create our experiences by how and what we think and believe, including creating the reality we experience. But we are participating in a shared creation. As such, it appears we lack control over many aspects of what we experience when in this reality. However, we've only given away part of our creative power for the sake of this shared experience. The issue is not to look to God to fix what we do not like in the world. Rather, we need to take responsibility for the creation we have created and look to see what we need to do to become and to change it. For most, this is difficult to do. The human mind finds it difficult to understand how it is possible that it is somehow responsible for the experiences for which it seems to have no control. Relative to the top of the box and your relationship with the unseen, it is suggested whatever you choose to believe, it should empower you to live your uniqueness. It should empower you to learn to dance with the world in which you find yourself, and you do not compromise your truth. Whatever you choose to believe, it should assist you to create a life worth living. As previously said, a life worth living is so internally satisfying, such that if you died and found out eternity is doing what you are doing now, you are so satisfied and it is so enjoyable that you could be happy to spend eternity living the life you are now living. Addressing the bottom of the box and accessing and releasing the body awareness. It needs to be understood our body is the vehicle we chose to use to create our physical experience as a human being. Encoded in the body is what we came here to do and is what gives it life and makes us feel alive. Awakening the body awareness and the body wisdom can and will lead us to the truth of our being. We awaken body awareness and body wisdom through what we feel. The body awareness appears to exist inside and behind what we feel. In focusing on what we feel and setting the intention to access what gives rise to what we feel, we will access and find what we seek. We will know what is giving rise to what we feel. In knowing what gives rise to what we feel, we can begin to see through time and space. One needs to remember our body came into existence before our human mind developed. Our body carries memories of everywhere we have been, including back into the embryo from which we arose. Additionally, it is suggested that we carry energetic ancestral memories that go beyond what we carry in our genes. I personally have found such memories in my life. To come to an understanding of the true depth and breadth of who and what we are and the depth and breadth of our creative power and creative ability, we need to be able to explore all aspects of our being. To access the wisdom of the body and what it has to offer, we need to be free to move past sexuality and be totally free to engage in what the body feels. All aspects of our being includes the creative power of sexuality. There is the need to move past sexuality into what the body itself can provide. The body can provide understanding, and what it needs in sexuality becomes clear when it is not constrained by the mind and its judgments and the limitations on what is appropriate or not appropriate for being sexual. Additionally, to access what the body has to offer, we need to become intimate with our body, its true needs, and its pleasures without the judgment of the mind and its preferences. However, whatever we do, we need to become aware of what causes us to have a fullness of being, fullness of life, a desire to engage life, create life within us, and allow for an expansion of who and what we are, and to do those things in life that move us in that direction. The creative activities in which we engage should allow us to expand our being. As infinitely creative beings with an unlimited creativity, what we do should allow us to continually expand our awareness of who and what we are and what we are capable of creating. Here it needs to be noted, in looking to use our creative passion, we will most probably end up facing sexuality and our concepts and beliefs about sexuality in one way or another. The reason for this is quite simple. Sexuality is the second most creative state we can enter, and it is one of the most energetic creative tools we can access. The body is the key to our creative passion, for it is the source of many, if not most, of our feelings, and our creative power lies in what we feel. The feeling of sexuality stands at the gate. Sex provides one, if not the most powerful, pleasurable physical feeling. When coupled with a proper emotional, mental, and spiritual aspect within a childlike, spontaneous, and innocent play of discovery of oneself and one's world, one enters the most powerful creative state of being. In this regard, it is important to be intimately familiar with the body and what it feels before we engage in sexuality relative to our creativity. If we know the feeling of the body, we will not become encumbered by it, and we are free to move past sex and sexuality into the awareness of the body that arises in the feeling beyond sexuality. As with any creative state we are engaged in sexually, we should be free to play, and it should be an expansion of our being and not limiting and constraining. If the sexuality in any way causes us to strengthen our ego at the expense of another, or causes our being to shrink, contract, or otherwise become less than who and what we are, and does not allow us to expand into the fullness of our being, the sexuality in which we engage does not serve us. How to not get trapped or diverted by sexuality. To understand the true depth and breadth of our creativity, we need to experiment with life to know what creative actions allow for or gives us a fullness of being, fullness of life, a desire to engage life, create life within our being, and allows for an expansion of our being. This is the key to using our creative passion. We need to be given a playful way of understanding what provides for the above creative experiences within our being. Then, when we engage in using our body, including our sexuality, we look to see if the person with which we engage continues to create that space with and for us, or we dance with them, alternating in creating the space for each other. This is the kind of person who can help lead us into the body awareness beyond sexuality and not be trapped in the sexuality. In this case, we are free to explore the true depth and breadth of our creative power. This includes the creative power of our sexuality, unbiased by mind, and the creative powers that lie beyond sexuality, that sexuality seems to stand as the guard or the dragon at the temple gate through which we must pass. What needs to be understood about the feelings related to sex and sexuality is the feelings are about sexual energy of creation and sexuality which permeates all of creation in some way. There is a creative tension in every creation which gives rise to the tension between seeming opposites, which can be expressed as the dance between the masculine and feminine with overtones, if not explicit feelings of sexuality. Sexual energy is the energy of creation which brings forth life regardless of whether or not a physical child is possible. There will always be a new energetic life created. We can learn to work with it consciously or have it control us non-consciously. How to best truly get out of the box is unique to each individual, for each creates the cage which confines their creative spirit based on what they have personally experienced in life and have come to think and believe. When it comes to sexuality, 2 recommendations are suggested. One, is there an old saying or proverb? A person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from the mistakes of others. A fool never learns. The first recommendation is choose to become wise, especially in the area of sexuality and the energetic life it creates. The second recommendation is learn to use and consult your own intuition. The journey of exploration into our creativity revealed we are here for a purpose and a role to play. Our intuition is available to guide us to align with that purpose if we choose to use our intuition. Our intuition will also guide us as to how to use our sexuality as it applies to our own unique life path.